Today's episode of In the Trenches is brought to you by System 12 Guitar Method. Sign up today at ryanroxie.com.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches. I am your host, Ryan Roxie. What is happening, everybody? As you file into the live chat, this is going to be a big one today. I appreciate you guys all for listening on the audio broadcast, which is Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as Facebook and whatever other platforms. But the one platform, YouTube, where we have our live chat and you guys show up every single week, week in and week out, that's where we want you. That's at Ryan Roxie official YouTube channel. And there is a subscribe button or a like button if this is your first time watching the podcast. So hit that button right there. Hit that subscribe button. It really does help us get eyes on the podcast and keep growing and keep carrying the torch of rock and roll, if you will. Like I said, today's show is personal. It's great. I'm excited. Are you guys ready? Let's go. Our guest today is a key member of one of the biggest hard rock heavy metal bands ever. They have 400 million subscribers, 4 million subscribers on YouTube. And the music video for the song titled Wind of Change just hit 1 billion views. This is our first guest with over 1 billion views on one of their videos. The band is, of course, The Scorpions, and their first album was released 51 years ago yesterday. 51 years ago yesterday, their first album. I have a deep personal interest in today's podcast because the Scorpions were the first band that took me on my first legit big rock tour when I had just joined the Alice Cooper Band way back in 1996. Sold out amphitheaters and leaving my ears ringing nightly. The reason why I do wear in-ear monitors to this day, but that was the taste of what my touring life was about ready to become back in those days in 96. So to talk about all those good times and the Scorpions' continued 2023 Rock Believers tour of the world and elsewhere, please welcome into the trenches, the voice and the man who fronts the iconic Scorpions, Mr. Klaus Meine. Hello, Klaus.
Hi, Ryan.
There you go.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for showing up. Thank you for being a part of it. I just got to say, like I said, thank you for taking us on that tour. And way back in 96, both you and Alice, it was a great amphitheater tour. And it was my first time, really the big time, and I wasn't lying when I had those ringing ears.
I think when we just recently played the United States, we're passing one of the gigs, or you remember the Gorge?
Yes, the Gorge up in Washington State.
We were just passing by. We had a little stopover. We said, "Oh, we got to go out to see this." We have been here like such a long time ago when we played together with Alice. It's such a beautiful gig. And,
it is a beautiful gig. Yeah.
And that have been that tour you're talking about.
Yes. The thing was, I also mentioned in-ear monitors because I think we all wear them those days, nowadays. But back in that tour in those days, I think we were all still playing off of regular monitors, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When did you make that switch in the band, the Scorpions? Because it had to have been loud since day one, since you joined the band. When did you finally make that switch to in-ear monitors?
I think I've been using the big wedges for way too long, I'm sure, because, when you're on that stage next to Rudolf and Matthias for so many years, it blows your ears away, and so I did this for quite a long time. And I think, it must be 10 years or so that I started using in-ears, and it's such a blessing. You have a great sound everywhere, wherever you play, and it doesn't matter, so, but back in those days, it was in all this chaos that came out of these big speakers on stage, it was like oh, get it up, get it up. I need some more high end, and I'm sure the guy did, put me on some more high end, but that's what killed my ears in the long run, so, but it's good. Ryan, I still can hear you, my friend.
That is good. That is very good that we're able to talk back and forth and not scream and go, "How are you doing, Klaus?" No, it's all good. But there are some old school holdouts. I know that Joe Perry, that plays in a band with Alice called the Hollywood Vampires, I know that he's very reluctant to this day, so he still has wedges on stage. Do you guys, as a Scorpion, still tour with wedges, or is that all a thing of the past now?
No, it's been pretty much in the past, everybody's on in-ears, and we have a great monitor guy, he's doing a brilliant job every night. And so, I mean, we have a great crew, without our crew, we would be lost, So it's a major point, when you go out there, you have to have the right crew, people around you, making sure you sound great up front and you have a great sound on stage, wherever you go, and our crew, they make us feel good, so we go out there, they do a sound check in the afternoon, and by the time we get on stage, it's all perfectly set up, and thanks to our crew, and then we go out and rock you guys like a hurricane.
Spoken like a true professional, giving the crew the credit they deserve. I love it. And you mentioned about that was years ago. Well, that's good to know that we have to go back to get forward for a little bit more of your history. What do you say, Mr. Vic Chalfant? Now let's go back to get forward. There is so many things. I could do a podcast on every era of the Scorpions. So I'm basically just going to cherry pick just out of the decades. And I want to go back really quickly to, I believe, your infatuation, your love for all the British bands that came out back in the 60s. And one of the first bands you were in was called the Mushrooms. And now, did those British bands have any influence on those bands? And which were your favorite British bands that came out during that era? Because there's a nice picture of the Mushrooms right there.
I tell you, I mean, back in the 60s with the Mushrooms, my first band, one of the bands we did a lot of covers, was The Who, because they're, I mean, amazing rock band, fantastic songs, but also very melodic, and they were like a great band to follow up. And we did our shows at the weekend, playing 5 to 6 hours with little breaks in between, like the Beatles did at the Star Club in Hamburg at the time.
Exactly.
You had to play the whole night, mostly cover versions. And with us, it was like The Who, the Kings, some Beatles, some Stones, but The Who was one of my favorite bands to do covers, when we played our little gigs out in the countryside. People came, basically, I mean, the audience, they didn't came to see the band. It was like they wanted to dance, wanted to have a good time, and after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and we had a little break, and then we kept going for hours and hours and hours. I tell you, it was a good school for a singer, to train your vocal pipes,
Yeah.
It's
And
cool.
how not to overuse it, I can imagine as well. Also during that time, I know that a lot of German bands would release the music in the German language, but since the inception, you were the Scorpions. When you joined the Scorpions, you were singing from English from the beginning. Now, was that a foresight for an international career? Did you have your sights set on things bigger than Germany from the get-go when you joined the Scorpions?
I mean, Rudolf Schenker, he did from the very beginning. I think it was almost like the first time I met with Rudolf, so he was on this whole thing. One day, hopefully we are one of the 30's biggest rock bands in the world, and to sing in English, being a German band, there were many people laughing at us, and but our dream, to become an international band was right there with the decision singing in English. If we would have started singing in German, Ryan, you never would have heard of us,
Right.
And the rest of the world the same.
And I never would have been able to get on that tour in '96. So thank you. Whatever Who album it was, or whatever Rudolph had in his mind, that big plan, that big picture plan. Thank you for doing it in the English language, because it did give us the Scorpions. A lot of people don't realize that you joined the band probably, what was it, 5 or 6 years after its inception, because Vic, our producer, had a picture of the original. There it is, the original Scorpions. And then you joined it how many years afterwards?
Oh, well, pretty much 5 years after that. I was New Year's Eve, 69 to 70, that I joined the Scorpions together with Rudolph's brother Michael. We were supporting the Scorpions that night, playing a gig outside of Hanover, some club, and it was like a New Year's Eve gig. And I mean, Michael was like, at the time, he was 15, 16 years old. He was an amazing guitar player. And by the time we had our rehearsal rooms in the same building in those days, and Rudolph, his band was already like, they had huge equipment, they had great gigs. The most important thing in those days was, where do we play next weekend, and how can we manage not to play only at the weekend? Hopefully we can get a couple of gigs throughout the week,
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to manage ourselves to talk to club owners, that they book us at the weekend or at the Wednesday night, So, and Rudolph was listening what was going on next door with his brother Michael. And hey, since the Scorpions had no singer in those days, so it was like, oh, it's not too bad.
I love it. And they corralled you both in to
exactly. So Rudolph had a plan, and when their guitar player at the time, Uli Vorobek, left the band, so he was looking for his brother to join the Scorpions. And like I said, there was no singer really in the band. And I think he liked when he heard us playing with Copernicus. It was the name of the band I was together with Michael. And we were on our way as well, playing good gigs like in Hamburg or in Berlin, so, and it was a smart move from Rudolph to bring his brother and his singer in at the same time. But that was New Year's Eve, 69 to 70.
I love it. And then then you guys honed your craft. You worked on it. You worked on the band, for which a lot of bands wouldn't do in today's musical environment, because everything has to happen real quick. But it took you 2 years, and you recorded and released Lonesome Crow, literally your first album singing with the Scorpions, in 1972, 51 years ago, exactly yesterday. How does it feel for that? Can you remember when that album was released 51 years ago?
Of course. I mean, it was like a dream come true. I mean, when Michael and me joined the Scorpions, I think that's when we started writing our own material. Of course, we still at those gigs, we played cover versions from all those bands. Like, we started also playing cover versions of Led Zeppelin, and Michael was so much into Led Zeppelin, or a band from Ireland called The Taste, so. But there was a time, the early 70s, when we started writing our own material, and when we had the chance to go into a real studio, like in Hamburg, at the Star Studio. We ran into Conny Plank, who used to work with bands like Kraftwerk at the time. And he liked the Scorpions, he liked our sound. And we were like a rough diamond, you know. There was no, it was between psychedelic, between hard rock, between everything, you know. We were wide open, and we're just influenced by all those mostly British bands. And so when you listen to Lonesome Crow, of course, we were totally proud when you hold your first album in your own hands, you know. I just remember driving in my car and I heard a song from Lonesome Crow. I think it was I'm Going Mad. I stopped the car, I hit the brakes, you know. I stopped and it was like, wow, almost had a heart attack. I listened to your own voice coming out of the radio, you know.
Nothing like the first time, Klaus. I love it. And you know what? 19 albums later, folks that are listening now, if you're just joining us to the podcast, Klaus Meine from the band Scorpions, talking about his iconic career with the band Scorpions and so much more. Thanks for joining in our podcast. 19 studio albums. I don't even know how many live albums and how many different compilations. It has to be up close to 100 at least now if you add everything, but 19 studio albums, their latest being Rock Believer, released in 2022. So I want to talk a little bit about, because I'm looking at it, the discography, and it seems like you guys are putting out an album either every year or almost every 2 years at that point, because, you know, right after Lonesome Crow in 74 comes Flight of the Rainbow. Then, you know, 1975, right after that, In Trance. Then Virgin Killer 76, Taken by Force in 77, Love Drive in 79. These are all, and Animal Magnetism in 1980. I mean, album after album. Was there any time to rest, or was it just studio touring?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, but we were young, we were hungry, you know, and we wanted to play everywhere. And when we met with Dieter Dierks, our legendary producer, he actually celebrated his 80th birthday yesterday. And I called him, and it was nice to talk to him, and brings back so many memories in the days around 75. There he is. You know, you came to see our show last year in Athens, where you played with Alice as well, right?
We played together. We were all there. And I believe that picture is from Athens, because I know Athens when I see it. It's always sunny, and it's up there at the Parthenon. Yeah.
It's taken at a beautiful place called Cape Sunio. And yeah, this was the day after the show before we left for Tel Aviv, I think. Yeah, with Dieter, so many great memories. And I talked to him yesterday to say all the best for
his birthday. So his birthday was the date that your album was released as well, because you just celebrated the 51-year anniversary of the album. So there it is. And that's nice. Maybe a coincidence that we didn't know. Serendipitous thing.
Yeah. So, but within Trance, that was 75. You know, we started this amazing run, this amazing journey with Dieter being our producer, from In Trance 75 up to 78 or 88, not 78, 88 with Savage Amusement, you know. So we had a long run and very successful. He managed to get us to Japan, you know, where we recorded our first live album, Tokyo Tapes, you know. So, and whenever we came back from the tour, we went back in the studio, a little city outside Cologne here in Germany. And yeah, we spent a lot of time there writing songs, making albums. And then when the release date came close, you know, then most of the time the next day we started another tour.
Right off on the bus, right? Getting right on the bus.
We came to America for the first time in 79. Then that was like a love affair with our American fans from the very beginning. And we spent so much time on the road, and it was so inspiring, you know, to come for the first time to New York City, to Chicago, you know, LA, all these places, and to discover the US through the tour bus window, you know.
It's great.
It was so inspiring to write songs like The Zoo and The Rock You Like a Hurricane, of course. So it was such a huge inspiration, you know, and to come back to Germany, right into the studio.
Back in the studio.
Yeah, and it worked out very well. And this was the foundation for this worldwide career that in the early 80s we became part of the international family of rock.
Well, speaking of studios, we should give a quick shout out because they helped out a lot today with today's broadcast. Peppermint Park Studios, which you're in right now, beautiful studio. I thought, that's one of the best green screens around, but it's no green screen. That is for real. That is a real studio console. Everything that Klaus is sitting in front of. Big shout out to Peppermint Park Studios. And just a little fact there that's where you guys recorded the latest record, Rock
Yes.
Believer. Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, when the pandemic hit us hard, going from lockdown to lockdown, it was a tough time for everybody. And but we said, okay, we've been around for a long time. And so we should not complain about we cannot play concerts. We've been on the road constantly in the last 10 years. So maybe it's good to slow down a bit. But the best thing was that we started writing new songs, and then we came here, Peppermint Park, at home, our home base in Hanover. And we closed the studio door, to leave the cruel reality with all the COVID-19 stuff pretty much outside and try to stay on our feet. Mickey came in from Sweden,
Yes.
Mickey D, Pavel Maciwoda from Poland. Sometimes they had to go into quarantine, before they could join us here. But it was a blessing, almost like music therapy in those demanding times, to create new music and a new album. And when Rock Believer was ready to go last year in March, we started a tour in the US. We started a residency in Vegas that was postponed twice because of the pandemic, and it was so great after this long break, to be back out on the road again. And
you finally ended up doing that residency? Didn't you do like 9 nights or something like that there?
We did 9 shows at Planet Hollywood, Zappos Theater, and we stayed almost 4 weeks in Vegas. And, it was like, the feeling was coming from Europe. In Vegas, it was almost like before the pandemic, Nobody was wearing masks anymore. And we were back. I thought, geez, when we go to America and play our shows, to stand in front of a couple thousand people every night, and you go like, come on, sing along. No, it's like, please don't sing, it's too dangerous. But it was amazing. And Vegas treated us really nicely. And after this long break, but with a new album and new songs we could offer, and we put in a new set list, it was fantastic. And the end of the tour last year, the last show was also in Vegas when we played the Mandalay Bay Arena, the Michelob Arena.
Yes.
And so we played 10 shows in Vegas last year, but also a long tour in the US and Canada. And it was fantastic to play for our fans again and to be alive, after this.
I remember I saw some of those dates, and I remember that I think Whitesnake was supposed to be supporting you on those dates, and unfortunately, David was feeling sick, and because we just had Reb Beach on the podcast just a couple weeks ago on the In the Trenches podcast, but I remember waiting, saying, "Man, I hope we get the call." I feel bad that Whitesnake can't do the tour, but I hope that we can get the call for that tour because I wanted to go back out with you guys because we had such a good show in Athens, Greece. We played this really great stadium. It was a great show. The crowd was really into it. I'm going to go down. I told you right before the taping that I'll be down in Greece and Athens next week. So maybe there's something you want me to say to the Greek fans on behalf of Klaus Meine?
With the Greek fans, it was love at first thing, you know, all the way back. And, you know, I mean, when you have the privilege to be up on stage as an artist and play concerts in Greece, you know, then you know what it feels like, you know, to go out there and feel those emotions, you know. I mean, I tell you a story. When we played like years and years ago in Thessaloniki, I think, and there was a guy, they are so emotional, you know, and which is great. And there was a guy standing in front of the stage. He was crying, you know, he was totally going crazy. He was crying, and his girlfriend or his wife, I don't know, or his sister, you know, she looked at me the whole time going like, Klaus, do something, look at him. What are you doing to him? Look, do something, you know? And I went like, what can I do? You know, there's nothing I can do. And
it was your voice that was doing it to him, I think.
We had a press conference in Athens, you know, and I told this story because they said, so what is so special between the Scorpions and the fans in Greece, you know? And I told this story of the guy being so emotional in front of the stage, and there's one of the journalists standing up and say, that was me.
That's perfect. Well, the other thing is you have one of their own now, because you have Mickey D. I know Nicky D is Swedish. He lives in Sweden, but he's about as Greek as they come, because Mickey,
yes, absolutely.
Look at that. He looks like Zeus. He looks like Zeus right there. And he's definitely a Greek god behind the drums. So it must feel good to have, you know, it must feel great to have Mickey D behind the drums backing you guys up.
Absolutely. You know, Mickey he's a great guy and fantastic drummer, you know. He really, when he joined in 2016, it gave us really a fresh shot of energy, you know. And this album, Rock Believer, we did right here, just around here.
And that was his first. That was his first album with you guys, right?
His first album with us, and he gave it all he's got, you know, and so much power, energy, and so much fun. You know, we enjoyed so much to make this album. Anyway, it was really like I said, it was a blessing in those dark times with the pandemic. But we had so much fun here working on this record because we wanted to reactivate the Scorpions DNA, whatever that is, you know. And it was a lot of fun to be all together and play those new songs like a band, you know. Mm-hmm. And it was fantastic. And
well, looking at those album covers, Klaus, you know, looking at that last album cover for Rock Believers, I can see you're asking what the DNA is. In my opinion, my humble opinion, the Scorpions, the DNA has pretty edgy lyrics over the years, but you also had a few album covers that would maybe get you canceled in today's world. Like, right. I see the reason why the new album cover, it has this little diaphanous, you have a sheet over the girl and this and that, but albums like Virgin Killer, Love Drive, maybe they might get you in a little bit of trouble these days, but I'm glad they didn't, because back in those days, you guys got awards. You got the awards for being the best artwork by the esteemed Playboy magazine. How have you guys approached cover album artwork over the years?
I mean, when the CD came up, you know, and when we lost the vinyl records, you know, so it was a different format. The CD was much smaller, so we still were in love with working with great artists who come up with fantastic ideas for artworks. Sometimes it was fantastic. Sometimes it was very controversial, and sometimes it was over the edge. Absolutely. There's some albums looking back now, like Virgin Killer would be a total no-go today, of course. But with Blackout, with Helmwein, fantastic artists, Love It First Thing. We had the session for the artwork with Helmut Newton in Paris, you know, legendary photographer. Was wonderful to work with this legendary guy.
It's art. It definitely is art. Yeah.
we were close to working with Andy Warhol. It just.
Really,
It,
you were close to working with. Was there a certain album that he was interested in doing, or how did that work out?
it was just second half of the 80s, I think, like after World War Live, and we wanted to go and follow this route with working with great artists like Helmwein, Helmut Newton, and it would have been the next step, to work with Andy Warhol. It didn't work out, unfortunately. And this is what you got, Savage Amusement. Yeah,
You could make NFTs those days. You could have had the first NFTs, I guess.
Yeah.
We have a little thing called
important to hopefully come up with something great that reflects the music on the album, and it was always something that means a lot, And in the early days, of course, provocation was part of the game, where the record company says, we got to go for this, and this is like, geez, you don't want to show your folks at home, this one,
Well, sex sells. Wasn't that the famous line in Spinal Tap? Sex sells, or something like that. Yeah. We have a little section that sometimes we vacillate back and forth between fact or fiction, and or maybe never let the truth get in the way of a good story, as my boss Alice Cooper would say. But one of those concerns. The questions I have for you concerns the album cover Blackout. Now, is this a fact or fiction? Guitarist Rudolf Schenker is the man with the forks in his eyes on the 1982 Blackout album cover. Now, is that Rudolf Schenker? Because those forks freak me out.
He's not.
It's fiction. It's not. Wow. Who was it then?
It's a self-portrait of the guy who did this wonderful artwork, Gottfried Helmwein.
That's Gottfried. Okay.
And it looked a little bit similar. We went to some exhibition and Rudolf came dressed up like Helmwein, with a bandage and the forks in the eye, and at the time, Rudolf with his beard, and people were coming to Rudolf saying, oh, Mr. Helmwein, can we have your autograph? And Gottfried was standing next to us saying, I'm Helmwein.
I'm the one with the forks in my eyes. No, but that self-portrait of him, because I thought it might have been a half fact or fiction, a half truth, because I thought that Rudolph did dress that part for one of your music videos as well at one point.
Yeah, he did. We did a video for No One Like You on the beautiful Alcatraz Island in the San Francisco Bay. Nice. We stayed there the whole night shooting this video on real location, and it was fantastic. And Rudolf was dressed like the crazy guy smashing his guitar, and totally with the forks in the eyes and all that. Yeah, a lot of people thought it's Rudolf. No, but it's fiction. He's not.
I love it. Well, hey, you know what? Like I said, I could do a complete podcast on each decade of the Scorpions, but I want to keep things going really quick. So I'm going in a quick timeline chronological order. And so if you don't mind, everybody, if you're there in the chat, thank you so much for joining us on the In the Trenches podcast. We have Klaus Meine with us today, lead singer, frontman of the iconic Scorpions. Hit that subscribe button because it gets more eyeballs on our podcast, and we really do appreciate it. My name is Ryan Roxie. I am your host, and I saw that you had a few people that have worked over the years, friends of ours that have been on the podcast already. I saw James Michael. You'd worked with him as well. And then in the 2000s, you'd worked with Desmond Child to release Humanity Hour One. I believe that was in 2007. What was it like working with a songwriter like Desmond Child?
It was different, it was very LA-like, taking care of everything, So you had to have a personal trainer, because it's not only that you have to come with your best performance ever, that's one thing, but to make sure that everybody, and especially like when I talk about myself, that for the vocal performance, he set me up with a vocal trainer, for the very first time in my life. And I enjoyed it very much. So I learned quite a few things. And before I went to the session, in the studio, so I I met my vocal trainer in his house somewhere in the valley in LA. And then we had a personal trainer because Desmond thought being in the studio for like, let's say 2 months or even later, shooting videos, you guys must look brilliant, so you better work out 3-4 times a week, so it was totally different way of getting there, but very professional. And it was a lot of fun. Also, I remember working with our friend, not George Michael, but what's his name?
James Michael. Yes.
James Michael.
Yes.
And actually, he's a great guy, great singer,
Sure is.
great artist himself. I love him, James Michael. It was also great to work with Desmond, and also with James. It was a fantastic setup, and to spend some time in LA. It's always great, you drive with your convertible, to the studio.
That's one of the questions I had to ask, because as far as all the core members, all the guys that have been in there for the long haul of the Scorpions, other than your drummers that you've had over the years, because I remember when I first did that tour with you back in '96, with my first tour with Alice Cooper, and it was with Scorpions. I think it was James Kotek's first tour as well during that year, and he is an LA guy, no doubt. Now Mickey D is now I'm living in Sweden. Mickey D is a Swedish guy. He lives in Sweden. Your drummers seem to not live, in Germany, but you guys have all stayed rooted pretty much in Hanover. Is there a reason for that? Or is it just because, wait, I got places all over the place, I can go wherever I want?
No, I think it's because in all those years, we've been constantly all over the world, we played this global stage for such a long time that coming back home, it's like you reconnect with your roots, you be with your loved ones, you be with your family and friends, and that has been always a good and very important thing for us, in order to reload your batteries again, and then you go out and hit the road and do what you do. And coming back home, this is something you cannot buy, it's like family and friends. And this is what we did all those years, and still to this day. At the same time, we live in Los Angeles, we stay in beautiful hotels and spend a lot of time there. We were on the road in everywhere, every continent, and I think Rudolf lately said, it's the Metallica guys, they figure out when they get some offer from some far out places, did the Scorpions play there? Yeah, they did. Okay, then we can go as well.
You guys are the crash test dummies for is that place safe? Well, there had to have been some places that you guys have played over the years that have been security risks. Can you go back to a place or a time when you could said, oh my God, should we be playing this, or is this safe?
Now in April we go back to South America, and we're very excited to go back and play places like Bogota, Manaus in Brazil, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Santiago de Chile, and a couple more places. And to go to Amazonia, to go to, a place like Manaus, you're always a bit scared, because of all the little insects flying around. Some of you guys have to have vaccination.
Yes.
So some people don't, some have. I remember that when we played there last time, I had a shot before we got there, but I think Rudolf and Matthias, they came in, they tried to work their way through without being vaccinated, right? And Matthias was wearing something like, I don't know what it's called, when you
a net, some sort of net,
like a net, like when you like a stock with bees, where bees flying around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it looked really funny, but it worked. And Rudolph, he had some Rasta locks hair, hanging
See,
down. And when he was on stage, he was playing like this, and flying around to move the insects away.
I wasn't worried so much about the bugs and the spiders and the snakes. I'd be
Yeah.
more worried about the political revolutions and the civil wars, because you guys have played so many different countries. And I guess like what Metallica says, you guys are the pioneers of touring. And what can you remember what country you've played that you've thought was like the most remote, and like how do people know about Scorpions music here?
I mean, we played in the highest stadium, like in Bolivia, in La Paz, and that's a pretty far out place there. I mean, it's part of South America, and fantastic fans. They loved our music, but the air is pretty thin up there, when you go and play concerts, like in Mexico as well, but La Paz is pretty tough, so you have to use drink like a special tea that brings your blood pressure in the right place. It's very tough to play there and put out like a really powerful show, but we did. I mean, we've been on the road between Moscow and all the way to Vladivostok and back, so it's like crazy. And yeah, and in the jungle we went to see like some people who live really near Manaus, in the jungle near the Amazon River, the Rio Negro, when you really go deep in there. And they invited us to have lunch with them, and it was like on the grill was crocodile, and at the same time you see some Indian people there living there in the jungle, and the same day you fly to Sao Paulo with millions of people. It's fascinating.
It must just be a trip. Yeah, go ahead. Great things.
It's a trip, and being in a band, and so for all our lives, you really get to see the world, and you really can feel the power of music. And maybe it's because we're a German band, but we feel wherever we go, we say we bring guitars, we bring love, we're Germans, we have a German passport, but at the same time, we're world citizens, and we try to build bridges with people in different cultures wherever we go around the world. And that's beautiful, especially in these challenging times, so you can bring people together in a peaceful way.
Well, definitely you are world ambassadors of hard rock, rock and roll, heavy metal, whatever genre you want to call it. I'd say the whole big rock genre. You guys are definitely international ambassadors. It must trip you out to be some guys from Germany that form a band, write your songs in English, then perform them in a place like Bolivia, where they sing them back in some sort of form of English. And it does, when I say the word ambassador, I'll go back to this fact or fiction thing, because there is a conspiracy theory about being the song that just, congratulations, by the way, received 1 billion views on YouTube. You were part of the 1 billion view club on YouTube. The song, of course, is Wind of Change. Now, is this fact or fiction, Klaus? Is it true that the CIA was involved in the writing of the song?
It's fiction.
Fiction. All right. Why would people think that the CIA would co-write? You've already worked with James Michael. You've already worked with, you've worked with all these great, with these songwriters over the years. Why would the CIA help out on that song? It doesn't sound like a Desmond Child song. Put it that way.
Because we wrote a song, or I wrote a song in that case, because I'm a musician, I'm an artist, and I put my heart out in this one. But I guess the CIA would have write it to change the world, you know.
Well, you guys have definitely helped out the world with your music, no doubt about it, you know. And I know that we are approaching on a time zone, a time sort of frame. Like I said, I could sit here and talk with you all day, but with your voice, you need to save it. You probably have more interviews going on. Plus, you're getting ready for the 2023 Rock Believer Tour. Where does this kick off this year? And are you just as excited as you were back in 72 when that first album came out to go on that bus and get out and tour?
Yeah, it's still very exciting, you know, to go back on the road again, especially when you go to places where you've never been before. So this tour, the Rock Believer Tour in April, starts with a gig in El Salvador, you know. So I can't remember. I guess we never played in Central America. And so this is pretty cool. And this will be the first show, I think, in April before we go to Bogota. We go to Manaus, like I said before, to a couple more places in Brazil. And so with the Monsters of Rock together, for a couple of shows we do together with our friends from KISS. And the Kettner will be on the bill as well. So it will be a great package, the Monsters of Rock. And then when we come back home, we keep going in France. We play finally in Germany, do a couple of shows here in our home country, including our hometown. We haven't played it for quite a long time. Okay. And we play in Berlin and a couple more places. And then we go to Poland and to Stockholm. Actually, we are also, I think, in June in Stockholm. And then I might run into you.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that might be a time when I'm transitioning down to South Africa. But if I'm in town, I think Alice has some Hollywood Vampires dates. We're starting our tour in April right now, and then it's going to be also some Alice Cooper Hollywood Vampire dates. But then we're doing some stuff with Motley Crue and Def Leppard, some stadium stuff a little bit in the later of the year, and then doing some stuff with Rob Zombie. But it would be such a pleasure to cross paths with you somewhere on this road, or maybe jump on one of those tours, because it sounds like it's a super filled, fun year.
That would be great, you know. So it seems April is a good month to start touring again, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's good to have a nice break. And right now, we started doing interviews, you know, for South America and for the tour in the summer. And it feels good to
such
be
a
back
special
in the game. Yeah. And
you have special audiences all over. Like you say, your relationship with Greek fans, your relationship with Russian fans, your relationship with European fans, obviously an American, but South America is definitely something very special as well.
Yes, I mean, you can imagine that all those places in Eastern Europe, you know, like Bulgaria, Romania, the Baltic states, and of course the Ukraine, you know, we're waiting for the day where the wind hopefully will change again and we can play the Ukraine again, you know. So
yes,
we're waiting for the wind to change.
Let's hope. You know what? That falls into a little bit of our hot topics. I know I just have a couple minutes more, so I want to get into a hot topic. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in right now. Our guest today has been Scorpions frontman of the iconic band Scorpions, frontman Klaus Meine. And I think I've been practicing the pronunciation of that word. I think I've gotten it right. Pretty much close.
Yeah, no fiction there.
I love it. So our hot topic about retirement, because a lot of people lately have been unable to continue touring. And it seems as though for years, fans have been speculating when some of these monsters of rock, as you say, like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Scorpions, Alice Cooper included, will retire. None of them have. Unfortunately, Ozzy had to, and he just made that release statement just last week. That's why it's one of our hot topics. But is it simply, Klaus, best for the band members not to know about the timing of retirement and leaving the future instead? Or do you guys, do you feel that your fans should know that this is going to be the last one, or how do you approach that?
I think that's really a tough question, So we've been through this process once 10 years ago where we thought maybe should be the last album. Maybe it's about time to retire. We go back on the road for another 2-3 years, whatever, and then it's about it. But when we really tried to do it, then we learned so fast while we were still out there that, it was impossible to do. It was really impossible. And we never brought this up again. And I know there might be a lot of people that were pretty much pissed off because you say you retire and then you don't, Yeah.
You guys have been retiring for almost 30 years now, so don't even worry about it.
But then on the other side, we're not applause junkies, I think we have a deep connection with our fans around the world. And as long there is a demand for the band to go out and play concerts, I think to make an album like we did with Rock Believer, really like the old-fashioned way, it shows that there's still a lot of passion for the music. There's still a lot of passion for what we do. And to give the fan community, give them something we hope that hits them right there in their hearts, And so at this point, of course, we don't need to make another record. But we said, let's do this album. If it's for the last time, it's for the last time. But you never know. Maybe there are 2 more albums in your system. Maybe not. You don't know what's going on. Maybe what's waiting for you around the corner. As long as we're healthy, as long as we enjoy what we do, nobody is thinking about retirement, and it still feels so damn good,
That's the great attitude, Klaus. That is an amazing attitude to have. In fact, there's so many thanks that I have to have for this episode of In the Trenches. There you go, Klaus. Thank you very much, Rumi. He was asking how go put that question back up again, Vic, please. He was asking a question that we had from Rumi that said how Matthias Jabs uplifted the band when he joined all those years ago.
Absolutely. When Matthias joined the band in 88, in 78, 79, before we came to America for the very first time, of course, he uplifted the band because we became more of a unit, with, the Uli John Roth years, when Uli John Roth was our lead guitarist, it was also a special chemistry, and artistically, musically, it worked out very well to have these 2 roads in one band, But when Matthias joined, those 2 roads became one highway, and from there on, touring America, and that's when we also, from the songwriting and how we presented the Scorpions, it was just we were all speaking with one voice. So it was a very important moment when Matthias joined the Scorpions.
It was all on the same page, and you guys rocked as a unit. Obviously, you have. Thank you so much, Mr. Klaus. There's so many other people to thank on this past episode. I want to thank Federica for promoting it as well, and her questions and its contributions to the script. Of course, Vic Chalfant, our illustrious producer that is on In the Trenches. Thank you all for all these great photos, and as well as Joey, and who helped put this whole thing together. He's one of our executive producers. And one of his comments was, will you promise here and now to make more amazing albums like Sting the Tail and Rock Believer in the decades to come? They sound incredibly fresh. They're staying true to the Scorpions way. And it seems like you guys have much more gas in the tank for the future.
Yeah, Gas in the Tank was one of the first lyrics I wrote for this album. And Rudolf, who was in Thailand at the time, I have sent him the lyrics saying like, hey, come on, buddy, give me a dirty riff, my friend. There's gotta be some more gas in the tank, waiting for some cool killer riffs coming back, And he did, It was so inspiring to this time to work the other way around, where the lyrics were first and then the music, So it was very inspiring for both of us, and it looks like there is still more gas in the tank, and but we also realize that the road ahead is shorter than what's left behind us, so therefore we really appreciate, we're grateful that we still do what we do, that we still can live our dream, and the dream still goes on, and we're very grateful for that.
And I see that when you guys play live, because I experienced this live myself when we played that show together in Greece, you guys stick a lot to the same arrangements, and you stick to the same sort of feelings in the parts of the songs that you have for all these years. Where some bands go off and they do different versions of it, and they'll kind of change everything due to just over familiarity. But what is it? Is that part of the Scorpions' way of staying true to the original songs and staying true to the spirit?
Yeah, we try to stay true with the spirit. I remember that Carlos Santana invited Rudolph and me on stage in Las Vegas, and we jammed with Carlos, Rock You Like a Hurricane. That was a very
different. Was a little different. That must have been a little different.
Oh, but we try to stick to the arrangements, but sometimes, we're open-minded, to change little things around the songs. But on a long tour, it just feels good to know what you do, and you really want to deliver, and you want to put on a great show, And I mean, we're not so much of a band that's jamming around, and let's see, tomorrow we try this, and the other day we do this.
You have a set list, and that's what it is.
Yeah. We try to find the great set, and make it work, that with the classics and with the big hits, we also can present new material, new songs for our fans.
Yeah. You know what? It sounds very similar to Alice because of all the parts in the show that are choreographed with, like, the monster coming out or the guillotine being rolled out on the stage. We have to have a certain set list that kind of follows suit. There's one or two places where you can switch it up, but I always tell fans, if they want to see, all the rough edges, come to the first couple shows of the tour, because that's where we're working out, what the set's going to be like. But once it's there, it's pretty much, we feel that we have our set that delivers to the fans night after night.
This is the best way to present the song, or the way the set works between the hard rocking stuff and the classics and some ballads. It's a fine line. You have to find the right way to present the whole show. And we have so many LED walls with some great content there, but that's all. That's in the big picture. But the most important thing is the feeling, the vibe, and the togetherness with our audience, with our fans. And we want them to leave and go out back to reality life and say, this was a fantastic night. We really enjoyed rocking out with the Scorps. And they're getting a little older, but there's still some gas in the tank.
There's still some gas in the tank. Well, Klaus Meine, I really appreciate you taking the time to be in the trenches. Everybody that's been watching and listening to us on the In the Trenches podcast, thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe so we can continue to have more rock and rollers out there.
Right. Yes? I'd like to say thank you to all the folks that putting questions in. I can see on the bottom of the screen here, I'm sorry I couldn't answer all of you, but I'd like to say thank you so much for all of you watching. And again, Wind of Change, 1 billion. What can I say? What a milestone. I'd like to say all those fans around the world, watching that song and making this milestone on YouTube happening. Fantastic.
Hopefully, Klaus will be able to cross paths sometime in 2023. There's all the social media. All you have to do is, just put in Scorpions. It's going to come out. But at Scorpions on all your social media platforms, or at the-scorpions.com, you can see all the tour dates. And again, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank everybody enough for being a part, helping put this podcast together, making it happen. You know what, Klaus? I always ask people, especially icons like you, what's a piece of advice that's helped you throughout the years get through, all the tough times and maybe persevere to where you are today, that you can pass on to our listeners that help you just through life, basically. Do you have a saying?
Just believe in yourself, when you're starting out, no matter what people saying, just believe in yourself and follow your heart, and everything is possible. Anything is possible, you just got to believe in yourself and come on, pick up a guitar, take the mic, shout out, pour your heart out and write a song, and live a life of an artist and take a deep dive in your creative worlds and live your life and not let anybody tell you what to do. So just believe and follow your heart.
Believe in yourself. I love it. Klaus Meine, thank you for being on In the Trenches. And everybody, thanks for watching and listening. Until next time, everybody, I'm Ryan Roxie. Enjoy the ride. See ya. Thanks.
Thank you.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.